Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm Tristan Riddell.
And welcome to the Senate floor.
Talk nerdy to me.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this next edition of the Senate floor. I'm usually not the one that drives the intros to this show, but I was given the keys by my good friend Tristan Riddell, who I just came back from having met in person in Vegas, and that was really everything I was hoping it would be. It was a lot of fun, and no matter how much crap I give him on this show, he's a good egg.
Yeah, it was a crazy good time meeting you and rooming with you and just basically experiencing the entire con with you. And for people who want to hear us actually podcast together in person, you should go to my Star Trek Voyager show called To the Journey, where we do a show about the Vegas convention with Charlene Schmidt. It's the latest episode. It's called Viva TTJ, and everyone should check it out.
Yeah, look at you getting that cross-promotion in there. Well done, sir. Well done.
That's what I do.
Well, actually, after having seen you in Vegas, I'm going to take us into our intro topic, because one of the things you actually did when you got back from Vegas is you and your lovely wife went to go see Suicide Squad, which I know you two were looking very much forward to, and you've recorded your thoughts and released them on A Nerd Nuptial, which was very fun to listen to. I listened to that actually on my trip back from Vegas.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if you listened to that yet.
I did, because did I not? I think I told you when I was in Vegas. At first I was like, okay, I'm going to see or not see Suicide Squad based on what they think of it, because I know that you two, you're DC fans, but you're not afraid to call out when movies misfire.
Right.
And so I was gonna base my theater going experience whether or not you two liked it, and I listened to your thoughts. I won't spoil them here, but I'll say that I wasn't necessarily enthusiastic to go see it after listening to your review, but then it was one of those things where I didn't want to be left out of the conversation. You know, it's just I heard so many different things about this movie. I heard them from you and your wife. I heard them from you and I heard them from Lee. So I was like, you know what? I just got to go see this thing for myself, and it is what it is. And so I actually went to go see it today. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was a thing. That's pretty much my review of it. Now, let me ask you something, because one of the things that ended up getting me into the theater was one of the much publicized first appearances of this character in a movie format, which was Harley Quinn. And I know that you're a big fan of her. I know your wife is a big fan of her. So I wanted to see, what the appeal was, because I never watched a whole lot of the animated series. I'm not as big on DC as you are. So I went to this movie trying to understand what all the hype was about her and her character. And I came out and I'm still wondering. So that's my question to you. What is the deal with her character? Because in this film, she did nothing for me.
Well, can you expound upon that? Like, what was lacking for you?
I don't know. I felt that they never got to do much more with her. Like, I never got more of a sense of her character other than the fact that she was a psychologist turned crazy, and that she was just wacky in the head and in love with Joker. I don't see what makes her this huge icon in the Batman universe, let alone the DC universe, to the point where, doesn't she have her own comic at this point? Hasn't she gotten her own comic?
Yeah, she's gotten her own comic.
So, I mean, I kept waiting for her to do more than what they were giving her in the film. And I mean, I thought there was potential there. I could see maybe, it working in an expounded role. But in this film, I wasn't... It didn't seem like it was as fully fleshed out to the point where I could see what the reason why she has a following. I don't know if that makes any sense. You're getting me after 3 hours after I've seen it, so I haven't been able to articulate my thoughts yet.
Well, were you disappointed that she didn't have any superpowers?
No, I just it seems like she's entirely defined by her relationship to the Joker, and that the only other thing to her in the film was that she's crazy.
Well, okay, the thing with Harley Quinn is her origins are very much defined by the Joker, because according to Mad Love, which is the beginning of her, her original beginning, because she has a new origin now. She was a psychologist, a psychologist who got along on her looks. Like, a lot of people like to kind of glance over this, because in Mad Love you see her get her grade from a C up to an A because she flirts with the professor, and but then it turns out that she actually is a very talented psychologist. And so after a very long time of trying to rehabilitate the Joker, she falls in love with him, and then he pushes her over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Suicide Squad movie storyline, he screws with her head with electroshock, and then to push her over the edge even more, she drops into a bunch of chemicals that made Joker. Now, this is a part of her new origins.
Okay.
Like, her new 52 origins are what we saw in Suicide Squad.
See, I kind of wish they had expounded upon that more, because one of the things that I had heard that she was the psychologist that went wrong. So one of the things I was hoping to see and ultimately didn't get is how does a woman who is, it's her job to rehabilitate people, how does she get seduced by the dark side? And I mean, I guess it was shorthand for the people in the know like you who knows the backstory and has, all that knowledge, but it just seemed like it was a little too perfunctory for me to begin with. Like, her first scene with the Joker, he asks her for a machine gun and she just gives it to him. Like, I never saw that descent into psychosis, which I really would have wanted to see.
Well, I'm pretty sure they filmed it, and that was actually part of our criticism, is that Jared Leto actually said that they filmed so many scenes that they could have made a Joker standalone film out of all the stuff that they filmed. And that pisses me off, because that's what I wanted to see. I loved their relationship in the movie, and I loved their interaction, and I want to see more of it. And every single Joker Harley scene that we got felt like a shortened version of something larger.
Yeah.
And
I mean, can I just say, I think you felt the same way, but watching this film, the editing on this film is crap. Like, I was not a fan of the way this film was cut together, like, at all.
I should never feel like something is missing because of the editing, and that's all that I felt as I was watching it. And it was very interesting, because the Joker Harley scenes were my favorite scenes in the movie, but it still made me feel like something was wrong.
Well, I mean, I wonder if you were still you and your wife were able to get more out of it because you two know the material. As someone who was being introduced to these characters via this movie, I feel like I was lost. Like, I feel like I was getting it all by shorthand, and that ended up being a detriment for me. I couldn't hook onto the characters.
Yeah, because I very much wanted that to be the intro of the movie. Like, I could have had that be the first 15 minutes of the movie is the beginning of their relationship.
And I think I would have wanted that as someone who hasn't been as vocal with DC support. I think that concept, I think, is what part of what ended up getting me into the theater, because I wanted to see that, and I was kind of let down that it was just so cut and dry. I think the ultimate problem I had with this movie is I couldn't really connect with anybody. It was just done so slapdash and shorthand that the character, I could see potential. I could see that had we slowed down and had we developed the characters more, given them more dimensions, I think I could have identified with more people. But as it is, I mean, I think it's a movie of great concepts but empty potential. I mean, it's just, it's kind of a, I used a much more vulgar term on Twitter, which I won't repeat here, but you can go back on my tweet feed and look at it. But it just felt like it thuds, a thud of a movie.
Yeah, it's one thing that I said on the 602 Club on the Trek FM network, because I've talked about this movie twice now, and this is my third time, where I feel like the story did a disservice to the characters, but yet the actors did a service to their own characters, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what this movie was going to be, because, I mean, all the production stuff came out last weekend, and we'll never know. I just felt like that was weird, and I felt like putting them in a story where they're battling the supernatural is even weirder.
Yeah, that was the absolute 100% wrong move. Enchantress should have been nowhere near this movie. It should have been small. It should have been intimate. Should have been a heist movie, and it would have been better. And also, I want to see David Ayer's version. I want to see the version that they showed to test audiences where they said they needed a puffier one.
Right, and I hope that version it has less obvious soundtrack, because the soundtrack I thought to this movie, not the stuff that was composed. I wonder if there was anything composed for this movie, because it felt like there was a jukebox on constant play in this film.
Well, I definitely wasn't as critical of the music as you are, because I actually thoroughly enjoyed the music. I didn't really like the score that much, but I did like Deadshot's hero moment, the music there. It took me a while to get used to the music, because it was a little jarring at first, because they had music with lyrics underneath dialogue, and I thought that was odd. But then I started getting used to I started getting used to some of it, and then I started getting along with the flow. It took me a while to get into it, but I eventually adjusted to it.
Maybe it was my theater or something, but I couldn't hear some of the stuff that was being said with the music over the dialogue.
No, there's a lot wrong with it. I gave it a 4 out of 10 on Nerd Nuptial.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And I don't want to harp on it. I just was curious because, I mean, you know the backstory of these characters, and I'm sure they're much more rich and delved into than what was on screen. And I wanted to know that there was something that I was missing, and you're telling me that there is. So.
Oh yeah, these characters are great. All of these characters are great in the DC universe, and that's what really pisses me off, is that I think, and you hear me say this on Nerd Nuptial, where I personally think DC characters are better than Marvel characters, but Marvel Studios is servicing their characters better than DC.
Okay. So that kind of segues into what I wanted to talk about on this show, and maybe shed some more positivity than I have been on the movie. When this film when the reviews for this film started to come out, and they were largely negative, the internet, of course, imploded. And I think one of the I don't think it's unfair to say, Tristan, that one of the nadirs of nerddom is this petition that was circulating around to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down and taken off the internet because of the reviews for both Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman. Now, I mean, I understand why people are passionate, and I understand why people want things that they're looking forward to turn out well, but like I said, it's kind of embarrassing, at least to me as someone who identifies as a nerd and likes nerdy things, when it's taken to this level of fanaticism where it did get national attention because it went on the internet. All these media sites were reporting about it. So, I mean, how did you feel about the whole thing?
It was embarrassing, to be honest with you. It was gut-wrenching, and it's just so sad that this is where we put our energy. And Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregator. Like, they don't put this number on the movies themselves. They get all of the top critics. They get as many critics as they can, and it creates an average. If they like it, then that's a fresh. If they don't like it, that's a rotten. They blend it together, they average the number, and then boom, you have a percentage. It's not like a committee is sitting at Rotten Tomatoes tower and says, like, okay, Suicide Squad, bad, made by DC, bad, giving it a 26%. No, it doesn't work that way, you dumbass. And it's just, and also, if there was ever a company that would be skewed one way or another, it would be Rotten Tomatoes Rotten Tomatoes against Marvel and towards DC, because Rotten Tomatoes is owned by WB.
Yeah, owned by Time Warner. And so that came out, and it just got me thinking. And Tristan, we can choose to take this discussion where we will, but it just seems that, in tying back to our conversation about a week ago regarding superhero fatigue and internet reaction, there doesn't seem to be this open course of dialogue that we can have anymore, where we can debate the merits, like what we just did with Suicide Squad, asking someone who knows more and maybe was prone to liking it more to explain why they do so. We don't have that sort of debate and dialogue anymore. Instead, we have petitions of vitriol and censorship and people receiving death threats from other sets of people over media. At the end of the day, we're not talking about world leaders. We're not talking about life and death here. We're talking about films
Fiction.
And TV. And, so, I mean, it's up to us how we want to frame this discussion, because I'd like to try to argue for a more positive dialogue like we maybe used to have when we weren't so unchecked by the anonymity that we're afforded on the internet. But it's just something that I wanted to touch on and talk about. It's something that we're losing as a community in this day and age, and I think it's to me that's really unfortunate.
I feel like it's the instant effect of the internet. Everything is instant. Everything is at our fingertips. And so because of that, we don't think things through. We just react. We respond. Because think about it. When we were growing up, if you heard a review, it was either one of two sources. It was in the newspaper or it was on TV. And if you liked a certain reviewer, you would watch his show or read his or her column. And if you didn't, you would ignore it. But if you were a hate reader, then you would read it, and if it pissed you off so bad that you felt the need to respond, you couldn't just whip out your phone and send a tweet. You would have to write the newspaper a letter. You would have to write the show a letter. So you would have to take the time to register that this pissed you off. You had to go find paper, go find a pen, write an angry letter underneath your bare bulb, and then slap a stamp on it and either go to the post office or put it in your mailbox and wait. And that was how you did it. That is how the angry did it back in the day. Now, within 5 seconds of a review popping up online, you could tell somebody that they're an idiot. You can tell them that they're worthless. You can tell them that their kid should get cancer. You could tell them anything that you want, and there's almost no repercussions. That's the culture that we're living in.
Yeah, and there is no repercussions, and I think that's what's preventing it from getting better. I mean, I'm not calling for active punishment of people, but there should be some sort of, like, I don't know, infraction that Twitter gives out or something, because I think also in conjunction with your point, I mean, when you wrote that angry letter to the newspaper and you put a stamp on it, you send it out, not, you had to sign your actual name and you had to put your return address on there.
And you had to put you had to think about it. You had to really think about if this is what you wanted to do.
Right. And nowadays with the internet, I mean, you don't even have to think about it. You just type it up and send it, and you don't even have to self-identify. You can put in a username. You can distance yourself from yourself, so that people cannot, track that down back to you. So I think it's the level of anonymity that the internet provides that ultimately also makes it worse.
Yeah. And also I feel like with us coming together more, because in the realm of communication, the world is shrinking. The internet is making the world shrink. I mean, like, we host this show with a man from Edinburgh, and like, that was not possible until recently, and so we have all these opinions. Even though we're coming more together and we have more access with each other, I feel like it's siloing us even more. I feel like we feel like we have to get in groups, we have to get in camps, and it's no longer like when we were growing up, where it's like, oh, I like science fiction, or I like comic books. It's, I like Star Trek, I like Marvel, I like this, I like that. It's not general anymore. And maybe I'm being nostalgic. Maybe it's false. But I felt like growing up, like when I was growing up, I loved Batman. He was my favorite, but I didn't love Batman because he was in DC. I loved him because he's awesome. But at the same time, I'm watching Iron Man and Fantastic Four cartoons. And I didn't give a crap if they were from a different publisher. What was that matter? Like if you like reading Dune, or you like reading Harry Potter, you're not going to go like, oh, Simon and Schuster is totally better. Like, what kind of logic is that? And why do we do that with Marvel and DC? Why do we do that with certain superhero films? Why do we feel like we need to align ourselves with these companies? They're not us. These companies are not us. And it just feels weird that we try to brand ourselves into these camps. And I don't know if that's a victim of being able to group ourselves, because here's the thing. I know I'm talking for a while, but here's the thing: is that when I first came onto the internet community, and I've said this story thousands of times, where I found a community of Star Trek fans, and that was really what linked me to online. Because growing up, I really only had like my parents and a one friend in the neighborhood who liked Star Trek, and that's it. That's all I had growing up for like 20 some years. And then I joined Twitter, and I'm like, holy crap, I have all these friends now because we like the same stuff. And so because of that, I felt like it was easier to isolate myself from other stuff. Like, I don't know, like Star Wars, for example, but that's not a good example for myself because I love Star Wars. But that's another example, Star Trek or Star Wars. Why on earth can't we be both? And why do we have to compare the two? The two are nothing alike. And just because they has the word star in it, I really wish that Star Wars was not called Star Wars. I wish it was called something else because it would never be compared to Star Trek afterwards.
You're right. So one of the things I was curious about as you were talking and listening to you is that it makes me wonder what the source of this problem is. You know, the fact that we've become so intensely passionate. My question is, have we always been this intensely passionate and we've just never known about how vitriolic we can be because the internet's kept us apart? Or is it because in this day and age, labels are more important when you're on the internet and we've segregated ourselves more than we were in the 90s? Because I remember when Batman and Robin came out, people weren't sending death threats because it was a bad movie. It was just a bad movie, period. It didn't matter that it was DC. It didn't matter that it was a Batman movie. It was just a bad movie. There wasn't this backlash against people who didn't like it. And all of a sudden that seems to be the case with every movie that comes out these days, whether it be good or bad. So I'm curious to know your opinion. Was there a turning point, or do you think we were always like that? We just never knew about it because it wasn't so prevalent with the internet being around.
The world has always been horrible. I think there you have this older generation who, I know it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, where they go, back in my day, like we didn't have to lock our doors, like back in my day, this or that. Well, it really all depended on how you looked and what you looked like and what color you were or what neighborhood you lived in or what country you lived in. The world has always been a cesspool of murder and rape and carnage, but yet we now see it more readily. We see it automatically. If there's a bombing in China, we know about it the instant it happens because of the internet. If there is an assassination in Brazil, we know about it the minute it happens. Beforehand, it was probably a couple of days because of newspapers or never. And so when you hear an older generation say, the world's getting worse, or it's really just because of ignorance when they were growing up. And because the internet is so easily, like almost every single person in the United States has access to the internet, like you psychos have a voice, when beforehand they were the few who would write the letter campaigns, who would say like, oh, I'm going to kill you because of your movie. But you didn't really hear about it because the studios didn't really report on it. It was just like, oh, these crazy people. But now you have bloggers who will pick up one random factoid from one story, and then it'll just explode because it doesn't cost any money to post a headline on Twitter.
So you think that it's, because I think I agree with you, you think that it's not that we've changed per se, it's the fact that instead where information in the past took, days, sometimes weeks to disseminate to everybody and would get changed at various points throughout then, now information can be disseminated, accessed, interpreted, and acted upon instantly. Mm-hmm. That's instantly. The problem.
It's really funny because I had this random fact enter my brain today, where in 1776 they signed the Declaration of Independence in the States, but the Brits didn't find out about it until months later.
Right.
And so if that happened today, if like there's a country that's going to like sign their own declaration, we would know about before they actually put pen to paper.
Right.
And so it's just that is it. And so people would be writing articles, they'd be reading news articles, they'd be blogging, they'd be tweeting, they'd be Instagramming, all about these subjects. And it's all because of the internet. And so I feel like the crazy has always been there. It's just more visible.
Yes, I think I agree with you. Now, I know we're still early into our show, but we like to focus on positivity, and obviously this is kind of a negative topic, but I've been trying to think how to combat this. I mean, I wonder if you can, because mob mentality so rules hard on the internet. And the anonymity, like I said, just dehumanizes a lot of people. When you send a death threat to a critic and you can't even see their face, I mean, that's much easier than, like you said, writing the letter, sending it to an address, knowing that it's going to get to that person and that they're going to read it. We just assume that it's just going to float out there on the internet for no one to see and no harm is going to come of any of it. But I mean, what's the solution here? I'm not even sure. I think that it's a difficult one to process.
I used to work in news. I used to work in sports news. That's how I got my start. That's when my career started taking off. And I I know this is a harsh criticism for a lot of our audience, but sports fans I think are some of the worst fans out there.
Oh, they can be for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like science fiction fans or movie fans or comic book fans are slowly getting up there. If not, we have surpassed them in awkwardness and evilness. But my desk was right next to the subscription manager, and she would get phone calls all day of people complaining about a specific service or something in the magazine, or they didn't like how we rated a certain quarterback or something like that. But like when she started the day, she would listen to her voicemails, and she would have tons of voicemails of people just screaming at the phone, like throwing insults, swearing, being vulgar. And then she would call them back and say, "I would like to discuss your grievances with the magazine." And they would immediately act like a kitten. They would calm down, they'd tone down. Most would even apologize. And it's this interaction, it's this accountability that made them calm down and act like a decent human being. Because I know that this is not a common thought process for everyone, but in my specific culture, we were raised to believe that humans will naturally lean towards evil. Now, some people believe that when you're a baby, you're born, it's a blank slate. You can go good or bad. Like I believe that without proper nurturing, you will go towards evil. And I feel like that's our inclination as humans. And so one thing that kind of deters that is society, our parents and governing bodies. And so I do believe that accountability is the best way to deter this, but that will do nothing unless there's personal accountability, and that will also never happen. So I don't think there's actually anything that we can do. People will not be personally accountable for themselves.
Well, that's the thing is so I agree that accountability would be a solution. The question then becomes, where does that accountability come from? Because obviously people are not keeping themselves in check. And it would be incredibly difficult for social media to set up their own, I don't want to even call it police force, but its own system of checks and balances whereby people are accountable for what they say to other people. I mean, there are millions of users on Twitter and on Facebook, and holding everybody accountable under one company just seems like a nightmare and impossible to do. So I'm not sure where it comes from. I'm guessing the one thing that could help, if people would be up to it and would be courageous enough to do it, is something like what your old work colleagues did, which is to call them on their negative comments, but try to do so in a way that's non-confrontational and doesn't pour more gasoline onto a fire, so to speak. Does that make any sense?
I understand what you're trying to say, but I feel like that's good in theory, but in internet culture, there's a phrase, "Don't feed the troll."
Right.
And there's a reason why that's a phrase, because it works. If you trolls who are out there want to get a rise out of you, and if they get a response, that fuels the fire. And so they will continue to go until you block them or completely give up. And so the best thing to do is ignore them. And part of me wants to lean towards that way, because one part of me is no, these people should be called out. They should be held accountable for their actions.
But then again, how do you shame an egg avatar on Twitter? You know what I mean? It's just
and that's what I'm saying, is that the other part of me says let's just ignore them, because then they will go away. If we ignore them, they will stop doing it. If they stop getting a rise out of us, they will lose interest. And so let's stop reporting on these ridiculous change.org petitions. Let's stop giving these people their moment in the sun online by giving them dozens and dozens of blog headlines. It's kind of like when something actually horrible happens in the world, where there's actually someone who gets killed or gets imprisoned or gets hurt. We as people try to plead with the media outlets to not name the individuals who did it. Don't give them fame. Don't put their picture up on TV unless we're actually looking for them. Do not give them their moment in the sun, because that's what they're looking for. That's the definition of terrorism. And that is why we need to ignore these people, because if we ignore their actions, if we're not feeling like our safety is threatened and we can just ignore them, I feel like we should, and then the power is gone.
See, that's the caveat, though, right? Because I agree with you in theory, but with some of these people sending threats of death either or harm to either themselves or to family members or what have you, I mean, what's the point where we shouldn't ignore something? I mean, I know most of the time these threats will never come to be, but I have to imagine if you're the person who is getting threatened, or you're the person whose loved ones are getting threatened, it would be extremely hard to ignore, and you would want something done about it. So, I mean, I've never been in that position, so I don't know. Knock on wood, thank God. But
death threats and threats of violence need to be taken seriously because they are illegal, and they should be treated with more respect. Isn't the right word?
Seriousness.
Yeah. And I feel like Twitter is doing what they can, because here's the thing, is that we live in a society where if you have a town of 30,000, you probably have a couple dozen cops. Okay? Well, Twitter has millions of users and Facebook has billions of users. Now, I don't know the ratio because I'm a nerd, but not that type of nerd. I can't do the math. But think about that. Say you have a couple dozen cops per 30,000 people. You look at Facebook with billions of users. How many cops do you need to police that? Now, I know this is not a 1-to-1 ratio. I know this is a different story. I know, like looking at a screen of hundreds of tweets from hundreds of different people is easier than driving around a neighborhood. I understand that. But you get what I'm trying to say, is that like we have become so overbloated and massive online that our online world is almost bigger than our physical world when it comes to people. Like people interconnecting. Yeah, there's the Grand Canyon. Yeah, there's vast deserts and everything like that. Obviously, it's not the same. Again, it's not a 1-to-1. But think about how massive the internet is, how many websites we have, how many users there are on. Like I have Instagram, I have Twitter, I have 4 different email accounts, I have texting, I have FaceTime. I have so many different ways to get a hold of me, and I'm just one person. So multiply that by a billion, and it's just absolutely insane, all the avenues that people would have to track. And I guess one thing is to ask is, who's held responsible? Is it the individual who made the threat, or is it Twitter or Facebook who let the threat happen on their network? Or is it the police not investigating it? It's so much into there's so much to it that we don't have an answer yet, but it may come. I hope this day never comes, but it may come where we will have to have literal police who exist solely online.
As sad as that is, I feel like that day may be getting there. I mean, no one, I'm not aware of any film-based or movie-based or TV-based criticism threats that have actually been carried out. But it's getting to the point where certain people are just driven offline because they can no longer handle it. I mean, there was that story last month about, I believe it was Leslie Jones, who was in the new Ghostbusters movie, got so much abuse after that film came out that she had to quit Twitter, at least for a while, because people were just being racist, misogynist, and sending death threats. I mean, it's insane.
It's absolutely insane, because that's the thing, is that these people do not exist because of the internet. These people have always existed. There's always been racists. There's always been misogynists. There's always been horrible people. But the thing is, Leslie Jones is a public figure who they get to interact with. that is new. That is new. Okay, like I never would have dreamed that I would have been able to interview Garrett Wang or talk with Jerry Ryan on Twitter when I was a kid watching Voyager. The idea never popped into my head that was a possibility, and I would never have to leave my couch while doing it. That's insane. We are in a world where we have direct connection with the content creators, a direct connection. It's not just us writing a letter and hoping they see it. If we send them a tweet, there's a really good chance that they're going to see it. I mean, like a 90% chance that they're going to see it.
And do you feel like, because I know that you and I have talked about this in the past, because there is that direct connection to actors and writers and directors, people feel that now gives them carte blanche to say whatever they want to say, to give to yell their criticisms directly to the people as loud and as emphatically and as harshly as they want to, because they feel like they're entitled to this open line of communication where they weren't before. They didn't have that avenue.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's definitely because they have this direct connection where in the real world, like, okay, if we met these people say we were at a coffee shop and Leslie Jones walked by, do you really think that individual would go up to her and say, Ghostbusters sucks? You are, I can't even say it. I can't even say it because it's horrible, but like spew racist slurs at her and spew sexist slurs at her and everything like that. Do you really think that individual would go up to them? No, they wouldn't, because these people are cowards. But because they have direct access to them, like here's like if we ran across them on a coffee shop, that's one thing. But if if Ghostbusters pissed us off this much, we're like, you know what? We need to find out where Leslie Jones gets her coffee. So let's go to that coffee shop, wait for Leslie Jones, and then talk to her. Let's accost her. Now, all you have to do is, Ghostbuster pisses me off. What's her Twitter handle? Okay, you search it, you find it, you wait for her to start to tweet something so you know that she'll see it, and then you tweet, and then boom, you're done. That is the same friggin' thing, but it's not looked at as the same thing.
Right, and maybe it goes back to your point about, being raised in the right environment or being raised with the right morals. And I'm not trying to be preachy here, but what I'm saying is, it would never occur to me. I've disliked plenty of things in the past. I've talked about it on this show. I've talked about it on other shows. The example you use with Garrett Wang, I don't like Harry Kim. I've never cared for that character. I never thought he was written well. I don't think in certain points, I don't think he was acted particularly well. It would never dawn on me to tweet Garrett Wang to tell him how much he sucked as the character, or to even say that that doesn't even cross my mind, because no. I not to toot my own horn, but I try to be a decent human being and realize that it was a job and people make mistakes, but that never crosses my mind. So it makes me wonder why these people, not only does it cross their mind, but they think it's perfectly acceptable to do something like that.
One thing that I keep thinking about with this is, do you remember when I did the Star Trek question of the day?
Yes.
Now, isn't that how we met, like through the Star Trek question of the day?
If it's not how we met, it's certainly how we spent most of our time interacting, because I know I heard you on the Ready Room, and I was a big fan of yours, and I think I tweeted how much I was a fan of yours, and then we started regularly interacting via your question of the day. That's the long-winded answer, but yes. Yeah.
Yes, I remember. You were the guy who gave Dax as his answer for everything. That's right.
everything positive, mind you.
Oh, of course. Now, here's the thing. I don't do that anymore. I don't do Star Trek question of the day anymore. I would do it every single day, Monday through Friday. I gained a lot of friendships. People have met their spouses through my Star Trek question of the day.
Really?
Who now have babies. Yes.
That's awesome.
Multiple people have met their spouses through Star Trek question of the day. This is fact. I'm not just tooting my own horn here. It's actual fact. And so I got a lot of exposure with this hashtag because people would retweet it and people would find it, people would track it, and it was a lot of fun. But the thing is, with more exposure brings out all the crazies and all these assholes. And it got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore, where people would be yelling obscenities at me because they didn't like how I phrased a certain question, or because I had certain rules for the question of the day. And a couple of people, even after I blocked them, would still find new ways to insult me after I blocked them by finding me in other avenues.
Really, and this was just for asking a open-ended Star Trek question among fans. Because like I'm trying to think what is so offensive about the question of the day. Like I remember some of those questions. I don't know what people would find objectionable, but I guess
I'm thinking of one interaction in particular. This happened dozens of times, but I'll give one interaction as an example where I would ask the question, and then somebody would give an answer, and then one guy would find all of the answers he didn't like and then berate that individual. And he would, like, if they said like, oh, like my favorite series is Enterprise, he would chime in and say like, you're an idiot and Enterprise is a blight on the Star Trek fandom. And then I messaged him and I said, I was like, listen, keep it positive. Don't insult people or you're going to get blocked. And he just he just started screaming at me. Well, not like literally, of course, because it was all typing.
Right.
But he started berating me. He started insulting me, just like using vulgar words. And I blocked him. And then, but for some reason, this was before Twitter's block feature actually had any teeth. And he continually messaged me after I blocked him, and he would not leave me alone. And then like weeks would go by, and he'd come back and start berating me again. And this happened several times with several different people, and I just stopped doing it because it was bringing so much negativity to my social media experience that I was getting certain anxiety when I would log on. I'd be like, oh man, if I phrase it this way, is this going to cause these people to go crazy? If I phrase it that way, or like, what's this person going to say?
And the answer is you can't phrase it anyway, because any way you phrase it, someone will take offense to something. You know what I mean? Exactly.
And I am a nobody. I am not even a low-level celebrity. I have a couple of podcasts and I run a podcasting network. Okay? I am nothing on the scale of Leslie Jones or someone bigger. Can you imagine the amount of negativity that they would get on a daily basis just from existing online?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could handle, because I have anxiety too, and I don't think I could handle being a person who has any modicum of fame, because the amount of positivity that they get is matched sometimes, if not overshadowed by the negativity, especially with this social media. I mean, I applaud people like when Leslie Jones came back, she decided that she wasn't going to let it get her, and she came back and she reinstated her Twitter account. I applaud her because I don't know if I would have the strength to do something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, if I was a celebrity, like if I was someone who was in movies or directing movies or, doing something that gave me some sort of fame, I probably wouldn't be on social media. Because what happened was that after the Star Trek question of the day, and the only reason why I'm talking about this is because it's my own personal example.
And I'm glad you're talking about this, because I remember that's how we mostly interacted, and I had no idea why it stopped. I thought maybe you just ran out of things to debate, and we just quit that way. I'm very sorry to hear it was over this.
I know, and that's the thing, is that, like, just imagine how many experiences that I probably missed out on. Like, what if I stopped earlier? You and I might never be friends. And it's really sad to think about that, because, like, one thing that when I stopped the Star Trek question of the day, I started looking at my social media existence. I started looking at how I interact with people online. And I started to realize I was like, okay, I'm going to remove negativity from my life in all ways possible, especially my online life. And so if somebody said something that was inflammatory or something that I just didn't agree with, or something that was political based or religion based or race based, I told myself, okay, if they're an asshole, do not tell them that they're an asshole. Do not even call them out. Do not even tell them that they're wrong, because you're not going to change their mind. Just unfollow them or block them or move away. And like those quote unquote friends that constantly give you anxiety because you tweeted something about how you liked a movie and they thought you're an idiot because you liked it, I would then unfollow them or block them. And I would sleep well that night because I did not care. Like, if you are a negative influence on my life, I will cut you like a cancer. And I feel like all of us need to do that.
It feels liberating, doesn't it? Because I've done that with a couple of people who just posted things that either I don't agree with or kind of get my anxiety and or anger going. And I come to a point in my life where I realize I'm I have enough stuff in my life going as it is, enough stressful things, enough things that actually matter, that I don't need this extra stuff in my life. This is supposed to be my safe, fun space. So you're right. It feels so freeing, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like my social media enjoyment skyrocketed after I made that pledge to myself. And now everything's easy breezy online. I only follow people who I like. I only follow people who have positive messages and who are in a positive place. And if you are saying something vulgar or saying something racist or saying something, or if you're a social justice warrior on the loose when you're really the bigot, I'm going to unfollow you. I'm going to block you. I'm going to mute you. I'm going to do whatever I can to remove you from my life. And with film Twitter, with film online, how do we bring this back to message? How could we translate that into getting back to honest film criticism and not overreacting just because a piece of fiction that we were not obligated to watch, read, or listen to, we did not like? Like what?
Well, I think we do what, again, not trying to sound like we're the beacon of morality here, but I think that, the interactions that some people like you and I have, I think is a good example of how people can disagree on certain media and certain things that they like or dislike, and still not only be friends but compare notes. I mean, you and I can still post online, like I did with Suicide Squad, or like you did with something like High Rise. Don't explode at me. You can post online how much you've disliked that and not become an overly negative person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
So I think the takeaway message that I'm choosing to take from this is that there's no way we can fix all of it. No. You're never going to convince everyone to be on the same page. You're never going to be able to convince people to act with a certain set of decency. You're just going to have to pick and choose the people that you engage with. And I think that if you pick and choose the right people, like you and I have done, I think that you can still have a positive social media experience and a positive film debate experience without wanting to just throw your hands up in the air and walk away from it all, because I think there are good discussions to be had. We have them bi-weekly here on this show. And I think it would be a shame if you and I let it get to us and we stopped doing the show because we got people saying they don't like what we're saying.
So I feel like what we can take away from this is, okay, a very wise man once told me, you cannot change another person, but you can change how you react to that person. So if we take that into account, and like you just said some very amazing things, I feel like we can tailor our own social media experience. I feel like we cannot change other people. We will not be able to change trolls. We will not be able to change psychos. We will not be able to change overly negative people, but we can unfollow them, not listen to them, and not seek them out. We have control over our own social media experience for the most part. I mean, we as non-low level celebrities, non-celebrities, like we as just normal average Joes, you and me, have that ability. For the larger stars, I do not think they have that ability. But if we're sick of the negativity, if we're sick of the blogosphere picking up every single, little factoid about a movie and then blowing it to pieces, we can choose to ignore it. Because what happened was with Batman v Superman, I felt like I was inundated by this negativity about the film. And I like the film, but it's not like I was invested that much in it. It's not like I was going to live or die if this film did well. But yet I was just so exhausted from seeing it all the time. And so I started unfollowing people because that's all that they were talking about. They were talking about one person in 25 minutes made 30 tweets about how much they hated Batman v Superman. And then they continued the next day, and then the next day after that. And I was just like, oh my God, you are a pathetic human being. Like, if this is how you want to spend your time, you want to spend your time focusing on something that you hate? Well, then you have no business being in my timeline. And so I removed them. With Suicide Squad, There probably was the same amount of hate and negativity as BVS, but I haven't noticed it as much because I've chosen not to engage or interact or even notice it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no fan of Zack Snyder, but I couldn't find myself tweeting 30 times in the course of 20 minutes about a film that I don't like. I mean,
yeah.
I'll talk about it with somebody who shares the same opinion that I will, but I don't think that the world needs to see me have that discussion. I can have that discussion in private.
Exactly. Yeah, no one needs to see that. No one, not even yourself.
So that's what I'm going to choose to do, is I'm going to just tailor my experience the way that I best can handle it. And I'm going to do my part to not contribute to the negativity that gets picked up online, because it's still going to continue, Tristan. And as much as we want bloggers to stop giving attention to it, they're going to give attention to it because it gets momentum online. That petition I mentioned, by the time that petition went out on Tuesday when the reviews came out for Suicide Squad, and by the time you and I met up 2 days later, it had 17,000 signatures. So it's going to get traction. It's going to get attention no matter what we do. But I'm going to do my part to not give it that attention and not participate in those discussions, and to not shed any sort of exposure to those kinds of people, because those kinds of people we need to stress, like it was in the past, that those people are the minority. They just happen to be louder and have more attention now because of the internet. But we need to stress that they're still the minority.
Absolutely. I think it can be summed to two things, where you can tailor your own social experience and do not contribute to the negativity. And one other thing that I think you should do is go to lootcrate.com/nerdparty and enter in the code nerdparty. And from there, you'll save some money on a subscription to lootcrate.com. Lootcrate.com is a geek box filled with tons of geek joy, where you get $40 worth of material like Pop Funkos, comic books, t-shirts, action figures. And you'll get it for the price of $20. But if you go to lootcrate.com/nerdparty, enter in the code nerdparty, you'll save some money. So help out the network, help out yourself, and go to lootcrate.com/nerdparty.
I'm speechless. I'm just, how, Tristan? How do you make that transition?
Oh, seamlessly is the answer to your question.
Apparently, but color me impressed. We're going to talk after this show, my friend. But I'm glad we can end this discussion on a positive note, because it is an inherently negative subject, but we can turn it into something good, or at least good for ourselves.
There you go. You may not be able to change the world, but you can change your environment.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, it takes off so much stress as a nerd. But if you want to interact with us positively and have these civil debates and have these film discussions, we are out there on the Twitter sphere, at least. I am at mhanson0207.
I am at the Insane Robin.
And like I said, we would hope after this episode you would keep it positive, because we loved engaging with you guys. And we will, I thought this was a really nice discussion, Tristan. I'm happy the way that this turned out.
I am too, and I think I'm going to leave here and bring some positivity to my environment and to my loved ones.
Same here. So until next time here at the Senate floor, we were just thank you for listening to us, and remember to keep it positive.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.